Thanksgiving had always been my favorite holiday. I liked the ritual of it, the slow rhythm of cooking, the smell of roasted turkey filling the house, the sense that for one evening at least, family could still feel like family. This year was supposed to be no different. My sister-in-law Miranda had insisted on hosting, saying her new kitchen deserved to be shown off. I didn't argue. My wife Dana thought it would be good for everyone to gather under one roof again. You and Miranda used to get along, she reminded me. Try to let the past go for one night, I agreed, even though I knew the past never really stays gone. When we arrived that afternoon, Miranda's house looked like a page torn from a lifestyle magazine. Fresh paint, marble countertops, matching wine glasses set precisely around a long oak table. Her husband, Rob, hovered near the bar cart like a maitre d', topping off glasses, making sure everyone saw the imported labels. I offered to help in the kitchen, but Miranda just smiled that tight smile of hers and said, "Oh, I wouldn't want you to mess up my presentation." "Mark," she laughed, and a few others laughed with her. It sounded light-hearted, but I caught the edge in her tone. Dinner began as expected, polite conversation, small talk about jobs, kids, mortgage rates. Miranda ruled the table with the practiced ease of someone who measured worth by appearances. Every comment was an audition, every laugh a performance. It wasn't until the third course, the mashed potatoes and gravy, that her performance turned cruel. She placed a large porcelain dish in front of me, scooped a heavy ladle of something grayish and thick onto my plate, and said, "Eat the slop, Mark. You'll love it." For a moment the entire table froze. Then laughter erupted. Dana's hand brushed my arm, a silent plea not to react. I felt my ears burn. I looked down at the food, some kind of stuffing gone wrong, and back up at Miranda. Her grin was wide and gleaming. "Go on," she said. "You used to eat anything back in college, remember?" I forced a smile, cut a small piece, and tasted it. It wasn't terrible, just salty and dense. But that wasn't the point. The point was control. Miranda always liked reminding me, and everyone else, that I'd once struggled. Years ago, when Dana and I first married, money had been tight. I'd worked 2 jobs, one of them washing dishes at a diner. Miranda never let me forget it. "Pretty good, huh?" she teased again. "I call it my budget casserole. Cheap ingredients, lots of flavor, right up your alley." The table laughed again, louder this time. I felt the air grow heavy. I looked at her husband, Rob. He smirked but didn't intervene. Dana sat stiffly, eyes fixed on her plate. That was when I decided I wouldn't let it slide. Not this time. I finished every bite, slowly, methodically, smiling, as if I enjoyed it. When I set my fork down, I said, "Delicious, Miranda. You've got quite a talent for making trash taste fancy." Her smile faltered, just for a second, before she recovered. "Glad you liked it," she said. "Want seconds?" "Maybe later," I said, still smiling. The rest of dinner passed in a blur of wine and hollow laughter. I played my part, but inside, something had shifted. I wasn't angry anymore. I was calculating. When we left that night, Dana apologized in the car. "She went too far," she said softly. "I'm sorry." "It's fine," I told her. "Really?" But it wasn't fine. The next morning I woke early, made coffee, and sat at the kitchen table staring at the steam curling from my mug. Miranda's words kept replaying in my head, "Eat the slop." The way she'd said it wasn't just teasing, it was contempt disguised as humor. I'd learned long ago that people like Miranda only understand one language: consequences. I opened my laptop, logged into work, and started reviewing the event photos Dana's cousin had posted on Facebook. Miranda had tagged herself in half of them, posing with the food, the guests, the decor. Every image screamed perfection. I noticed one detail, though, the casserole dish she'd used for that slop. It was the same limited edition set she'd bragged about buying online for nearly $400 by noon. An idea was forming. I knew Miranda's weakness wasn't cruelty, it was vanity. She needed to be admired. She fed off praise like oxygen. And the best way to deflate vanity isn't confrontation, it's exposure. That afternoon, Dana left to run errands. I sat at my desk, opened my email drafts, and began typing. A short message to Miranda's Homeowner Association president, posing as a concerned neighbor. I mentioned food waste violations, improper disposal, and strong odors coming from the Wilson residence after gatherings. I didn't send it. Yet. I just kept it there, like a loaded weapon waiting for the right moment. Over the next few days, Dana mentioned that Miranda was planning a Friendsgiving party that Saturday, an event she'd been bragging about for weeks. 50 people, catered desserts, a professional photographer, the whole spectacle. Perfect. On Friday night, I texted Rob, her husband. We'd been friends before Miranda came along, though distance and her influence had eroded that. I told him I'd left my jacket at their place and asked if I could swing by early Saturday morning to pick it up. He said sure, just to let myself in through the garage. Miranda would be out shopping. Saturday morning, I arrived at 9 a.m. The house was quiet. Rob was in the backyard trimming hedges. My jacket was hanging in the front hall, but I wasn't there for a jacket. In the kitchen, the famous porcelain casserole dish sat gleaming on the counter, spotless and ready for use. I took out my phone, snapped a picture, then opened the cabinet below the sink. A sour smell hit me, spoiled vegetables, grease, and something worse. The garbage disposal had backed up again, apparently. I knew from experience that Miranda was too proud to call a plumber. She'd rather mask the problem with air freshener. I took another photo showing the clogged mess. Then I left, saying a brief goodbye to Rob through the back door. That afternoon, I set up a fake review account on the catering company's website. I wrote a detailed complaint about unsanitary food preparation conditions at a recent Wilson event. I attached one of the photos, cropped carefully, so only the sink mess was visible, with no identifying background except that signature marble counter. Within hours, the review was live. By evening, it had spread across local Facebook groups. People started asking questions. "Isn't that Miranda Wilson's kitchen?" One comment read. "Didn't she host the HOA dinner last month?" The gossip spread like wildfire. When Dana came home, she was holding her phone, frowning. "Did you see what's going on with Miranda's page?" Someone posted that her kitchen's filthy. "She's losing it online," I just nodded. "Oh, that's too bad." The next day, Sunday morning, my phone buzzed with a message from Miranda herself. It was short, sharp, and full of fury. "Miranda, was this you?" I didn't reply. An hour later, Dana came downstairs holding her phone. "Miranda's canceled her Friendsgiving," she said. "She says the caterer backed out last minute because of unfounded rumors." I poured another cup of coffee and smiled faintly. Maybe she should stick to homemade meals. Dana looked at me suspiciously, but she didn't press. By Monday, the neighborhood grapevine had done its work. Miranda's reputation, the one thing she guarded most, was in tatters. But I wasn't finished. Not yet. This wasn't about gossip or online reviews. It was about teaching her the same lesson she tried to teach me at that table, that humiliation feels different when you're the one holding the plate. And, soon, she'd know exactly what it meant to eat the slop. The morning after that disastrous dinner, the house was so quiet it almost hurt. The laughter from last night still echoed in my head. Not the good kind, but the cruel sort that eats away at your pride. I kept seeing Rachel's smirk, the way she'd pointed at me, the way my wife, Amy, had looked down at her plate in silent embarrassment. I could barely touch my coffee. Amy tried to act like nothing had happened. She busied herself around the kitchen, making breakfast for our daughter, but her movements were stiff, mechanical. When she finally sat down across from me, her eyes wouldn't meet mine. "Tom," she said softly. "About last night?" "Don't," I interrupted. "I'm fine," but I wasn't fine. The truth was, Rachel's words had done something deeper than just hurt my feelings. They'd pulled back a curtain I'd been pretending wasn't there. That family, her family, never really saw me as one of them. I was always the outsider, the middle-class guy who'd married into their pretentious little dynasty. I was the hard-working contractor who got invited to dinners just to make the table look balanced. I finished my coffee and told Amy I needed some air. She didn't stop me. I drove to the construction site I'd been managing for months, a big remodeling project on the edge of town. My crew was already there, hammering away, music playing, laughter bouncing through the crisp morning. It grounded me. These were my people. No fake smiles, no silver spoons, just men and women who knew the value of sweat and skill. But even as I checked measurements and signed off deliveries, My mind wasn't there. Rachel's voice still haunted me. Eat the slop. It wasn't just a cruel joke. It was a message. She thought I was beneath her. And worse, she thought she could get away with it. That's when the first spark of an idea hit me. Rachel and her husband, Greg, were hosting a charity auction in 2 weeks, something they did every year to boost their social standing. It was always a big deal. City council members, business owners, reporters, all the faces that smiled for cameras and stabbed each other behind closed doors. Greg was an accountant, but Rachel ran the show. Her reputation as a graceful socialite was everything to her, and that reputation could be shattered. I spent the next few days gathering pieces of a plan. Nothing illegal. I wasn't about to destroy my life for a moment of satisfaction, but I wanted her to feel what I'd felt. I wanted her perfect world to tremble, just a little. Amy noticed I was quiet that week. She asked if I wanted to skip the auction, but I told her no. We'd go, smile, and act like last night never happened. Inside, though, I was working on something that would make Rachel regret ever opening her mouth. You see, the construction company I owned had recently finished a renovation at Rachel's favorite restaurant, the Maple House. During that project, I'd overheard plenty of gossip from the staff. One tidbit stood out. Rachel had been using her charity accounts to get personal items donated. Designer handbags, imported wines, things that mysteriously vanished from the event inventory list every year. I didn't care about her stealing. I cared about her hypocrisy. She'd humiliated me for being common while she was literally cheating charities to look glamorous. So I started connecting dots, quietly, patiently. The week before the event, I went to the local print shop where I sometimes got building blueprints made. I asked the owner, Jake, to help me prepare some presentation materials. What I actually made were professional-looking copies of the charity's past auction receipts. The public ones, mixed with a few internal statements that Rachel had forgotten to shred at her office. Greg handled the numbers, and he'd sent me files to look over once when I helped them remodel their home office 2 years ago. I still had access to some of those drafts. I wasn't going to expose her publicly. That wasn't my style. But I'd make sure the right people noticed the cracks in her halo. 2 nights before the event, I invited Greg for a beer. We sat in my garage, surrounded by tools and the smell of oil and sawdust. He was stiff, nervous, probably knew something was coming. "Greg," I said calmly, "you ever wonder where all that charity money goes?" He blinked. "What do you mean?" "I mean the extra donations that don't show up on the final reports. The little things your wife signs off on." He frowned. "Tom, are you accusing—" "I'm not accusing," I cut him off. "I'm telling you, I've seen things, and I'm giving you a chance to fix them before someone else does." He looked shaken. He wasn't a bad guy, just weak. The kind of man who let Rachel run everything and pretended not to see what didn't fit her version of perfect. "I'll talk to her," he muttered. I nodded, finishing my beer. "You should. Because if anyone finds out what she's been doing, that perfect family image won't survive another dinner." He left shortly after, pale and quiet. I didn't expect him to do much, but it planted a seed. That was all I needed. The night of the charity auction arrived fast. The hall glittered with chandeliers and champagne. Rachel floated around like a queen, wearing a silver gown that shimmered under every flash. Amy looked beautiful too, but I could see she was tense. She hated these events almost as much as I did. When Rachel spotted us, she acted as if nothing had ever happened. She hugged Amy, air-kissed me, and said, "Tom, I hope you found something more appetizing tonight." A few people chuckled politely. I smiled, the kind of smile that hides a blade. "Oh, I'm sure I will," I said. The evening rolled on. Speeches, bidding, laughter. I waited. Near the end, as dessert was served, the event host, a local journalist named Diane, took the stage to thank Rachel and Greg for their incredible commitment to charity. Rachel stood beside her, glowing with pride. That's when I slipped away. I went to the media table, where the reporters had been given press kits for their follow-up stories. I'd prepared a small folder earlier that afternoon, anonymous, untraceable. Inside, a flash drive labeled Charity Financial Records. Internal. I slid it under the stack of folders. Then I walked back to my seat and clinked my glass with Amy's. "What did you do?" she whispered. "Nothing," I said softly. "Just making sure everyone eats what they serve." By the next morning, whispers had already started. Diane, the journalist, had called the charity's treasurer to confirm a few inconsistencies. Greg was seen leaving for work early, phone glued to his ear. Rachel, meanwhile, posted a photo from the event, smiling, confident, still living in her illusion, but it didn't last. 2 days later, an article appeared online. Questions arise over charity funds, managed by Rachel and Greg Thompson. It wasn't an accusation, just questions. But questions were enough. Sponsors pulled out, invitations were rescinded, and within a week, Rachel's social circle turned quiet. Her name, once a badge of respect, now made people exchange uneasy looks. Amy showed me the article at breakfast. Her voice trembled. "Tom, did you have anything to do with this?" I looked her in the eye. "No," I said, and that was the truth. I hadn't written the article. I just opened a window and let the light in. She stared at me for a long moment, then said softly, "She humiliated you." "And now," I replied, "she knows what that feels like." That weekend, Rachel called Amy in tears. She wanted to clear the air, said it was all a misunderstanding. Amy didn't know what to say, so she passed me the phone. "Tom," Rachel started, her voice cracking, "I don't know what's going on, but someone's trying to ruin me." "Ruined people usually say that," I said quietly. "You think this is funny?" She snapped. "You have no idea what I'm dealing with." "Oh, I think I do," I said. "But here's the thing, sometimes you don't realize how ugly something is until you're the one forced to swallow it." There was silence. Then, faintly, she whispered, "You're cruel." I almost laughed. "No, Rachel, I'm honest. You should try it sometime." I hung up, but revenge has a strange aftertaste. That night, lying in bed, I couldn't sleep. Amy had turned away from me, silent. I could feel the distance between us widening, like she didn't know who I was anymore. Maybe she was right to be scared. The next morning, I went for a walk around the lake behind our neighborhood. The air was crisp, the water still. I watched the reflection of the sky ripple with each passing breeze and wondered if I'd gone too far. Then my phone buzzed. A message from Greg. "We need to talk." Rachel's falling apart. I didn't reply right away. Instead, I watched the sunlight shimmer over the lake and thought about what falling apart really meant. Maybe for the first time, Rachel was seeing the world without her armor of superiority, and maybe that was enough. I didn't see Rachel the rest of that night. The house was silent, the kind of silence that feels heavy, like it's waiting for something to happen. Morning came gray and cold, the remnants of last night's storm hanging low over the neighborhood. I brewed coffee and sat by the window, staring at the frost on the glass. Then I heard it, the unmistakable thump of her car door outside. She was home early, too early for someone who was staying with friends. When she came through the front door, she avoided my eyes, brushing past me toward the kitchen. I followed slowly. "Morning," I said. She didn't answer. She poured water into a mug, her hand trembling just slightly. Finally, she looked up. "You told him, didn't you?" "Who? My brother?" she hissed. "About the party, about everything." I kept my tone even. "He called last night. He said someone sent him photos, videos. I didn't send them, Rachel. But I'm guessing whoever filmed your little eat the slop stunt thought the internet would enjoy it." Her face drained of color. She sank into a chair. "Oh, God." I sat across from her. The tension between us was thick as concrete. "You humiliated me in front of everyone. Now the world's seeing it. Maybe that's balanced." "I never meant," she started. "Yes, you did," I said quietly. "You wanted to make me small. You wanted to laugh. Now you're the one being laughed at." She covered her face with her hands. Outside, a car passed on the wet street. The world went on as usual, unaware that our tiny universe was collapsing. By noon, her brother, my wife's brother, technically, showed up at the house. Jason. He didn't even knock. He walked straight in, jaw tight. "Tom," he said, "we need to talk." Rachel was in the living room, eyes swollen. Jason looked from her to me. "You really told everyone?" I met his stare. "No, Jason. But your sister's the one who wanted an audience," Rachel snapped. "It was a joke." You don't understand. Jason threw his hands up. A joke? You dumped food on a man at Thanksgiving dinner, Rachel. In front of family. Now my coworkers are sending me that clip. That was when she broke. The tears she'd been holding back finally came, ragged and real. I didn't think it would spread. Jason looked at me, his anger softening into something like regret. Tom, I'm sorry. None of us should have let it get that far. I didn't answer. Words didn't fix things anymore. That evening, I stepped outside. The air was crisp, the kind that stings your lungs and clears your mind. Across the street, Mrs. Cooper was walking her dog. She gave me a sympathetic nod. She'd clearly seen the video, too. Rough week, huh? She said. You could say that, she smiled faintly. You held your head up through all of it. That counts for something. It was strange. The comfort of a stranger's validation. I hadn't realized how much I needed it until then. Days passed. Rachel barely left her room. The internet had done what the internet does. Turned a cruel joke into a viral storm. Memes, hashtags, captions. Thanksgiving Slop Queen. Every hour her phone buzzed with new notifications. Her job called. They wanted a discussion about workplace image. I didn't celebrate it. Watching her unravel wasn't satisfying. It was sad. This wasn't revenge anymore. It was reality coming for her, and reality doesn't play favorites. One evening, she knocked softly on my door. When I opened it, she stood there, makeup gone, hoodie hanging loose on her frame. Tom, can we talk? I nodded. We sat in the kitchen, the same place it had all started. The bucket was gone now, but its memory hung between us. I've been thinking, she said, her voice hoarse. I don't know why I hated you so much. Maybe I saw you as everything I wasn't, calm, patient, decent. And that made me feel small. So I tried to make you smaller. I stayed quiet. She needed to say it all. I'm losing everything, she whispered. My job, my friends, my reputation. I deserve it. But I wanted you to know. I'm sorry, the words hung there, raw and simple. For the first time, I believed her. A week later, I got a call from Jason. She's staying with me for a while, he said, trying to get back on her feet. Said she's been sober since the holidays. Therapy, too. That's good, I said. And I meant it. He hesitated. She wanted me to thank you. Said you didn't post the video, even though you could have. That's more mercy than she gave you, I smiled faintly. Tell her. Peace starts small. Months passed. Winter thawed into spring. I fixed the deck, painted the fence, filled the house with quiet music again. The ghosts of that night lingered, but they didn't haunt me anymore. They just reminded me what self-respect costs and what it gives back. Every so often I'd see Rachel's name online. She'd started volunteering at a local shelter, speaking about online humiliation and forgiveness. The irony wasn't lost on me, but I didn't laugh. People change when they finally hit silence hard enough to hear themselves. One afternoon, as I watered the lawn, a car slowed by the curb. Rachel stepped out, hesitant. She looked healthier, lighter somehow. She walked up the path, stopped a few feet away. I brought this, she said, holding out a ceramic dish covered in foil. It's lasagna. Real lasagna, not... We both chuckled. The tension broke. Thanks, I said, taking it. I don't expect anything, she added quickly. I just wanted to make something decent. Maybe start again. The words caught me off guard. There was no manipulation in her voice this time. Just humility, I nodded. Starting again's not a bad idea. She smiled, was small, grateful, and turned back to her car. As she drove off, I stood there in the golden light of early evening, the dish still warm in my hands. The neighborhood was quiet, kids playing down the street, a lawnmower humming somewhere distant. For the first time in a long time, everything felt balanced, not perfect, not easy, but fair, and that's all I ever wanted. That night, I ate the lasagna alone at my kitchen table. It was good, really good. I thought about how strange life is, how a single cruel moment can tear people apart, and how one honest one can start to stitch things back together. I raised my glass to peace, to dignity, to the quiet victory of staying true to yourself when the world turns loud. And as I looked out the window, watching the last light fade, I realized something. Revenge doesn't rebuild you. Forgiveness does. The house felt lighter that night, almost new. like the air itself had let out a long, tired sigh and finally relaxed.